speakers, here are a few items for your attention. Please move to the center of your row to make space for those who will be joining us later. We love kids, but please leave if you have a crying baby or a disruptive child. You can find one-on-one encouragement in either the mentoring moms or prayer room shown on the facility map. By completing a conference evaluation, you can let us know what you appreciate and where we can improve. Find the survey link on page 6 of your program or online at the midwesthomeschoolers.org. midwesthomeschoolers.org. Paper surveys are also available at the MPE table in the lobby. Audio recordings of each session are available at the Rhino Technologies booth in the lobby. This workshop's title is Rites of Passage, Equipping Our Children for the World. Mr. and Mrs. Gelatts are the founders of the Open Door Refuge Ministries in Kansas City, Kansas. They homeschool their 7 energetic children on their urban farm. They also serve as the leaders for Midwest parent educators. Please welcome Micah and Johanna Gillette.
Okay, are we on? Are we live? Okay. Is that loud enough? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Micah and Johanna Gillette, as she said, are our names. So I guess quick introductions. We have 7 children. The oldest is almost 16, and the youngest is almost 2. So we run the range there, and then many in between. And what we're going to talk about today is many things, and we're going to try to cover a lot of material in a short amount of time. But whether you have kids that are younger, teenager, preteen, or really young, it doesn't matter, or if they run the gamut. What the plan that we put together and that we want to share with you is applicable to wherever you're at. Okay, so if you start to hear things and you go, oh, this might just be for if you have older kids, or no, it's not. It's really not. So we want to. It's a kind of a comprehensive thing we put together, and we want to share it with you. But it applies to. Can you hear? I can't turn myself up. Talk louder. Might need water. Can you hear me in the back or no? So? Okay. Is there anybody, yeah, I'm going to do that. Anybody in sound? They say they can't hear me in the back. Does it have a volume? Can you hear me now? Okay. Is that better?
Wow.
All right. I'll just do better at talking louder. There you go. Now that everybody's awake. So it applies to all ages, parents of all ages of kids.
So I want you to think back for a minute to the birth of your first child. So we just told you that ours is almost 16 years old. So 16 years ago, we were on the cusp of becoming parents for the first time. Remember some of the thoughts that were swirling in your head and think back. The excitement, the dreams, the expectations. When we became parents, as I'm sure most of you probably were, we were super excited. So excited. And yet we were so unprepared. We really did not understand what was going to be changing our universe. Now I want you to think, and I want you to fast forward a couple of years. We haven't gotten here quite yet, but that same child is about to drive off to college. We're almost there, so this is kind of hitting home for me. Some of you have probably done this already. You give them that last hug, you say, I love you, and then they drive off, and life will forever be different. But what are they driving away with? That's the real question. What have we as parents poured into them in the 18-ish years that we have them under our roof? Are they really, truly prepared for the world is the real question.
Years ago, my father-in-law, he was my mentor for many years when he was still alive, and he taught me, as you prepare kids for the world, there's really 3 ways to do this, and you can write this down if you want to. One way to prepare them for the world, now that they all prepare the kids for the world, but maybe not to the quality that you want. One way of parenting for preparing kids to be launched. Think of our theme of the conference as arrows in the hands of a warrior. As you prepare to release those arrows, one way to do that is called isolation parenting. So kind of picture it this way with this analogy that he gave me. We're on a beach, and our kids are there with us. We're kind of safely up on the sand, not even down to where it's wet yet. And the water, if you can picture the water of the ocean, it just goes on forever as the world. The big bad world that we're going to release our kids to. And so isolation parenting is one where we're way up almost to the parking lot. We're not even close to the water, okay? And so we're not even really going to let them ever touch the water. We might talk about the water and how evil the water is and how we should never even read books that talk about the water or listen to music that references the water. And so that's isolation parenting, and it's not very good at preparing kids for the world. And to be honest, since I've grown up in the homeschool community, being a homeschool graduate several years ago myself, I tend to see this in the homeschooling community. I'm not saying this about you all, not at all, but I see it too often in the homeschool community, where we isolate, and the world's there, that big bad world. And so, but then another type of parenting is immersion parenting. So kind of that same family's there on the beach, they get out of the car, they're going to go to the water. No preparation, no training. They take their kids, every age, including the age of the little baby that's walking in right now with mom, throw them into the ocean. And then they just go have a picnic. See you kids, you'll do fine, you know. And that's immersion parenting, where it's just like, just go on and go be salt and light, 3-year-old, you know. And so, but there's no preparation. And to be honest with you, having grown up in the church, a youth pastor for many years, I see this a lot in the Christian community, where it's just like, well, the kids will be fine. I turned out okay, you know. So that kind of parenting. And then there's a third type that my father-in-law taught me, and that's intentional parenting. We might say insulated parenting or intentional. By insulated, think of it like this. Same family there on the beach, then imagine that they put their kids in wetsuits to kind of insulate themselves from the temperatures, because maybe the water is going to fluctuate here and there. They're going to prepare them with swimming lessons. They're going to warn them about the dangers of sharks and rocks and different things. And then maybe daily they're going to go and take a trip and a walk. And let's get our feet in, little guy, little girl. This is the water. And let's go a little farther the next day. A little bit further. And so what are they doing? Slowly they're saying, yes, there is a big bad world out there. But you can navigate in it if you become prepared. And so that's, as we put together and talk today, that's really the type of parenting we're going to focus on. Is that intentional parenting? What does that look like? Oh, I'm sorry. She says I'm too undressed. We'll talk about that in our marriage talk tomorrow. Okay.
All right, so back to the arrows. If our children are arrows in our hands, what's our plan to shape them? So we want to be ready to release them, right? I don't want my children in my house forever. Like, I want them to actually go eventually. Okay, that's the goal. You actually need to go. And so we want to have a plan in order to shoot them wisely so that they hit their target. We truly believe that this plan should start day one. Okay? Day one. We need to be ready to hit the target, and we need to everything we are doing needs to prepare us to have them hit that target. So we came up with a plan. We started talking about this, I don't know, a decade plus ago probably. We kind of have come up with a very fluid, specific plan. It kind of changes and morphs all the time, and so you're getting what it looks like right now. We want to be intentional in the whole person. So a lot of people, when your kid hits, I don't know, it's different ages for different kids, but 13, 14, somewhere in there, 12, 13, 14, they oftentimes, a lot of our friends, and there's nothing wrong with this. We used to work for a ministry that pushes one of these programs. They'll take their kid, mom will take the girls, dad will take the boys, they'll go off, they'll have a weekend together, they'll kind of talk about the things that are weird in their bodies and what's going to happen, and, you know, a purity weekend of sorts. They come in all different shapes, sizes, and flavors. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is a portion of what we do. We felt, though, that we really needed it to be bigger. It needed to have more, not just focusing on their purity. It shouldn't just be this one time where we're going to take them away and have this special weekend and they remember us talking to them about their hormones and their purity. Okay, we wanted it to be bigger than that. So we started to develop a plan for our kids. So those of you who are note takers like me, it frustrates me when people don't have a handout. We don't like handouts because then we're stuck to our handouts. But here are 3 things if you are a note taker. Life lessons, character qualities, and specific experiences. I'm going to unpack those for you. So if you missed them, you can catch them second or third time around. Life lessons, number 1. These are your basic life skills. There are certain things that we want our kids to know how to do. All right, boys and girls. We have 2 boys, we have 5 girls. We want the boys to know girl things. We want the girls to know boy things, okay, traditionally. So some of those things, I'm sure a lot of you do these types of things, but here's our challenge to you. Make a list of them. Because if we're not intentional, sometimes they fall through the cracks, right? Or for me, I have a lot going on in my house. Anybody else have a lot going on there? I have 7 kids. Like, seriously, I might forget to teach number 5. I don't know. Micah might forget to teach number 5, which happens to be a girl, how to change the oil. He taught number 3, he taught number 2, but he forgot number 5. Okay, so actually make a list of the things that you want your children to know. Basic life skills. This is really simple, okay? So you want to begin with the end in mind. When they drive away and you say goodbye, what are the things you want them to know? So for us, some examples. You change the oil, fix a tire, wash the dishes. Doesn't that sound funny? How many of your children don't wash dishes very well, right? You have to go back and revisit it. This is how we do this. Handle a firearm, do the laundry, start a fire, how to organize their room, their desk, their schedule, how to be a good planner, how to plant a garden, basic construction, how to handle themselves in social situations. Okay? Start taking your children places where you have to actually teach them how to talk to people. Balance a checkbook, talk to strangers, mow the lawn, put gas in the car, pay for the gas, survival skills, okay, all those things, all those normal things, all right? So that one's really simple, life lessons, basic life skills. Number 2, character qualities. Again, make a list. But this time, instead of thinking of the things that you want your kids to know, go to God's Word. Go to God's Word and make a list of character qualities that you want in your children, okay? So for us, we want our kids to know what it means to be a man or a woman of God. We want them to have compassion for others. We want them to have a missional mindset. That's a huge part of who Micah and I are. That's something we want to pour into them. We want them to be able to tell the truth. We want them to know how to apologize. How many people don't really know how to apologize well? Think about that. That's a skill you have to teach your kids. You have to train them in that. We want them to have a good work ethic. We want them to be able to put their family first. We want them to be protectors of the weak and the innocent. That's something we have to intentionally teach them to do, model to them. We want them to be gentle and full of mercy. We want them to fight for justice. So go to God's Word. Figure out what are the character traits we want our children to have when they drive off. Because when they drive off, they're gone. Not that we don't have an influence, but honestly, that ship it's sailed. Okay? The last one, number 3, specific experiences. So you have to be we feel like we need to be really intentional. This is beyond your basic life skills. These are experiences that you want your children to have while they're still in your guidance. And this is all going to start taking shape because we're going to give you practical things that we do here in a minute. Okay, I'm just setting the stage. So, again, you're going to make a list. Make a list of the things that you want them to experience with greater understanding and ability. So for us, we want our kids to know how to get from point A to point B. We want them to know how to navigate in a large city. We want them to know how to get, how to use massive transportation, like get on an airplane, make a connection, how to ride the subway in a big city, how to be aware in a big city so that you don't get things stolen, all right? So these are things beyond your basic life skills. These are things you're wanting them to learn while you are still with them, guiding them. So Mike is going to talk about how we do this.
Okay. So Johanna says there's 3 gifts that we want to give, and then there's 3 ways that we give those gifts. And so I'm going to talk about that, and she will as well. And then we're going to get into some very specifics of what we're doing to make this happen that we're giving to you. 3 ways to give the gifts. One is what we call lifelong mentoring. Okay. The word mentor, if you're one of those parents who insist on your kids reading the classics, then you might know who mentor is. Anybody know? The word mentor comes from Greek mythology. Mentor, capital M, was a mentor. He was a wise guide that was given as an advisor to Telemachus in Homer's The Odyssey. And what he did was he imparted wisdom on this young person who didn't know very much. Okay? And so that's where we get the word mentor in English. So think of it as a mentor. It's someone who's older and wiser and has gone through life experiences that the younger person has not. And so what I call it is, and think of parenting like this, you're a guide on the side and not a sage on the stage. Okay? You're a guide on the side. You're coming alongside your children, and you're not a sage or a wise person on the stage. A sage on the stage is someone who just basically pontificates all their wisdom, and kids, you darn well better listen. Okay? That doesn't always come across very well. But as the kids get older, you kind of take a side view and kind of go, listen, hey, little guy, hey, little girl, I'm guiding you. Okay? Because, again, begin with the end in mind. These are future adults. These are future leaders. They're not just kids. So begin with the end in mind, okay? So lifelong mentoring is the guide on the side and not the sage on the stage. A couple things needed for mentoring if you want to jot this down. Time. You've got to have time together. You have to make the time. Who in here is busy? Everybody, right? But when we put the description in the program for this talk, we said that this is something different than just curriculum. This kind of view of parenting that we put together is different than just getting curriculum and slapping that down and calling that good. That we really feel like this is even greater than any formal curriculum we bring into our house and teach our kids. It's a mindset that's bigger than that. And so we have to make time to make this work. And it might be small amounts of time depending on your schedule, but you've got to make time together. These are Deuteronomy chapter 6 moments. If you know that, that's where it basically says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And then it goes on to say that the word of God, the law of the Lord, impress them upon the hearts of your children. And then it says, when you sit down at home or when you walk on the road. What does that mean? If we're home or away, talk about the things of the Lord. Whether you lie down or whether you get up, what does that mean? 24/7. Talk about the things of the Lord. And then it says, I think symbolically that you bind them on your hands and your forehead. What does that mean? Whatever you do and whatever you think, talk about the things of the Lord with your kids. Time together is mentoring. Okay? It can come in many forms. It can be watching a movie together and then talking through. Don't just watch a movie and go, cool, dude, and then move on with life. You missed a golden opportunity. Video will stick in their head for years. What an opportunity to go, hey, I've done this with the boys recently. We watched Last of the Mohicans, and I'm like, hey, did you see the servant attitude of this character and how he didn't care about his own life, but he was willing to lay down his life? That's manliness. So I could talk that to the kids. I spent the time, and I'm being a mentor to my boys. Okay? Open communication is another one for mentoring. It's got to go two ways. Now, age appropriate, Dad, Mom, you can share your struggles at their age when it's appropriate. When they're preteen and teen especially, you can be like, listen, I was there many years ago. This is what it looked like. Don't do it when they're 5 unless you want them in therapy, okay? Do it when it's appropriate. But have that open communication and then let them talk. So many parents that I've talked to over the years shut down their kids. Here's the number one way to do that. Get in the car when you're driving around town or going on a trip and you throw on the radio within, 10 seconds? You just shut down communication. You just told your kids this song that they might want or you might want is more important than you possibly hearing something they have to say. So see that time together, if you're going to track or whatever, that's time together. And that's an opportunity for open communication. And then the third thing is an intentional direction. So when I'm mentoring my kids or when Johanna's mentoring our kids, we're intentional about where we want to go. We're like those parents on the beach who are preparing our kids for the big bad water. We're intentional. We know where we want to go. I know the questions I want to ask them. I don't know it all the time. I'm not perfect, and I don't do this perfectly, but I have a sense of where I want to go. Make sense? So if we're watching a movie, and it's just going to be like, hey, it's a popular movie, we reviewed it, it's cool, let's watch it, then while it's happening, I'm sitting there thinking, take this opportunity, Dad, and ask some questions. Okay? Don't just let this go by as some cool moment. Okay? So be intentional in that way. And then we'll talk more about that as we get into the rites of passage, trips and activities that we've put together. But those are some things to consider for mentoring. Time together. Open communication, and let that go both ways. And be intentional about your mentoring. Take every opportunity and make it a Deuteronomy 6 moment.
Okay, I feel like I'm stepping away from my notes for a minute, and I'm coming around to this side of the podium because if you were in my kitchen right now, I'd have you pull up a chair and we'd sit down with a glass of water or a cup of tea. And I feel like that's kind of what needs to happen right now. Okay. If you've heard us talk before, you know that we are completely transparent.
Right.
So
we might need wine or...
Right. We're back here. They've asked us to speak about something. I'm coming around here.
I'm supposed to... Okay.
Yeah, I'm coming around here to tell you we fail at this all the time.
All the time?
I fail at this all the time. Didn't mean to drag you under the bus with me.
Okay, got it. Totally.
Okay, I could sit here and I could give you example after example after example of times that I have missed time together with my kids because I'm tired or I'm busy or my calendar is pressing or, quite frankly, I just don't want to. I'm just being completely out there. Sometimes I just don't want to. I can give you many more times when I shut down communication because there are 7 little people who want to talk to me all day long and sometimes my ears are tired. I'm just being real. And so oftentimes they'll come to me and you know what? And then it grieves my spirit when I realized what I just did, that my 5-year-old came to me and she wanted to tell me all about something that she created outside with rocks and dirt and all kinds of things. Or my 11-year-old comes to me and wants to talk to me about Legos and the inner workings of Hobbitville and I don't know, stuff that doesn't interest me. Right? Exactly. You're laughing. You've been there, haven't you? Yes. And so we fail at this as much as we're successful. So they've asked us to speak, but I want you to hear our hearts. Yeah. We're no better, okay? I think that the key here is we just keep trying. Amen. We just keep trying. Because I love my kids and I want this for them. But I'm not perfect. And thankfully, I don't think it's the times where I miss the boat that they're going to remember. I'm hoping that they're going to remember the boat as a whole. Okay? All right. Oh, I'm up. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Back on course. Notes are here. Okay, so number 2 is intentional blessing. This can be in words and touch. So in Genesis 1:28, God creates Adam and Eve. What is the first thing he does after he creates them? He blesses them. It says God blessed them, period. God, the God of the universe, he created these people, and then he immediately gives them life-giving words. We should probably take note of that, right? So we need to be sure that we're building our kids up, that we're encouraging them with our words. Sometimes, however, our words don't offer just blessings. Sometimes our words can deflate them, right? So in James 3:10 it says, out of the same mouth come praising and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. So some days we scold our kids a little too harshly. We get a little too snippy with them. We are a little too curt, or we brush them aside. Some days are like that, right? Other days, however, we encourage them. We build them up. We pour life-giving words into them. Sometimes it might be moment by moment, if you're like me, right? When we encourage them, though, they stand a little taller. Their chins are a little bit higher. We have an example, and neither one of us can remember what it was, but Josiah, our almost 16-year-old, came to us. Who has teenagers in here? God bless you.
Saints.
I love my teenagers, but they are a whole new level of parenting. That's all I have to say. So Josiah came down one evening. Why is it always when you're so tired at night that they want to talk? I remember doing that to my mom. Bless her. I mean, seriously. Okay, so he comes down, and Mike and I are both sitting in the living room, and he comes down, and he sits on the stool. And I kid you not, he looks about like this. His whole demeanor, his body, his face, everything. He looked like a dejected puppy. And so, hey, buddy, what's up? What's going on? I'm thinking, I'm tired. How long is this conversation going to be? Because we got at least an hour of, I don't know. And so, anyway, we worked through it. And it was teenage stuff, so it wasn't even like really anything serious. It just things were weighing heavily on him. Mike and I, this was one of those times we did well. We sat there, neither one of us got up. We talked to him for probably a good hour and a half. Not about anything life-shattering, just listened to him, affirmed who he was, reminded him who he was in Jesus, built him up, encouraged him. And you know what? Within that hour plus, he sat a little taller, kind of got a smile on his face, and I pointed it out to him. I said, son, do you feel any different than you did when you walked down the stairs? Well, yeah, kind of. That's interesting, because I spoke some scripture over him, too. I didn't even get out my Bible. I didn't even say it. I just gave him truth from the Word of God. Son, this is who you are. This is how God created you. He made you special. You are here for a reason. He wants you here at this time, in history, in this place, because he has a specific job for you to do. I just spoke random truth, not random, but generalized truth. I didn't get out my Bible and read any scripture to him, but we poured, and Micah did the same thing. We poured life-giving words into him, and we saw him sit up straighter, to take a step back, and go, yeah, you know what? I think I can conquer the day for one more day. I can conquer it. And so our words are so important with our children. I have 5 different kinds of words, and I'm sure you've heard them before, so I'm going to fly through them. Words of affirmation. I love you. You're unique. You're special. There's no one else like you. I tell my kids that all the time. I love you so much. There's no one else like you. I'm so glad I get to be your mom. Words of healing. We have to model this to our kids. I'm sorry. Would you forgive me? Wednesday. This has been a horrible week for us. I'm not going to bore you with the details. It has been a horrid week for the Gelatt family. There's just been a lot. And I kind of hit my max Wednesday night. About midnight. Children shouldn't still be up at midnight. But they were. And I kind of lost it. I'm going to be really transparent with you. I did. I walked up into the girls' room and I saw the atomic bomb that went off. And I laid into them. Like, laid into them. It was totally warranted. Totally warranted, but totally not right. And so I laid into them, felt better, walked out of the room, walked downstairs, and I said, you need to go tell them good night because I'm not going back up there. Do you understand me? That is about how it came out. And then the Lord said, oh, Johanna, do you really want them to go to sleep tonight with this? So I had to march myself back upstairs at midnight, sit on their bed. Girls, I'm so sorry. Would you forgive Mommy? I should not have done that. I shouldn't. There's no excuse for me to ever talk to you like that. And they're like, yeah, but we deserved it. And I said, you know what? You were in the wrong, but you did not deserve those words from me in that manner. And I'm so sorry. We have to model that for our children. Words of vision. God has great plans for you. God has a gift, as He's gifted you, and He will use you for great things. He made you specifically for this time in history. We tell our kids that all the time. God wanted you here right now, today, because He has a job for you, specifically Grace Gelatt. And we use their name. He wants you to do something. Even at the age of 5, He has a job for you. Words of security. This one we probably say the most out of all of them. You can never tell us anything. You can never do anything. You can never become anything that will make us not love you. Amen. We say that all the time. I try to be extremely intentional about that, about saying that to all 7 of my kids multiple times. There is nothing you can ever do that will make me not love you. Words of prayer. Pray with your children. Pray for your children.
Words give life, but so does touch. Touch gives life, and touch gives love. We read about a doctor study, a case study, where a doctor had two groups, and he spent the same amount of time with the individuals in both groups. But this is what they did to set up the study. In the first group, he came in and he was very clinical, very impersonal. No human touch, appropriate touch. Take your medicine. This is the next appointment. There you go. Okay? This is the progress of whatever you have, your condition. And then the other group, he came in and he did medical diagnosis as well, but then he spent the time and he would sit and he would maybe just appropriately touch them on the shoulder. Just kind of appropriately hold their hand. How you doing? How are you feeling? Is there anything I can do for you? And it wasn't so much the questions he asked as it was the touch. Because the second group in that study, when they revealed their answers, they felt like the doctor actually spent twice as much time with them as he had the other group. But it was the same exact amount of time. So the difference is that connection of human contact. And it's necessary. It's a big deal for our kids. Now, granted, there's situations where there's kids who struggle with that physical touch. Maybe there's just something inside them or how they're wired that they can't do that. I get that. So be sensitive to that. However, I'd say on the flip side, if you're a parent and that's something that's a struggle for you because of past abuses or situations, try to work through that. Because it's a big deal for a little kid. Even if you just start with a fist bump or a high five, that's a touch. That's a touch point where you're connecting with them. So words give life, but touch shows love.
Can I interject right here?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this, but this came to me as you were talking, Micah. As we've had teenagers enter into our home, it's easy to love on our little babies, isn't it? They're so cute. They smell good most of the time. Right? If they don't, you go take care of it, and then you love on them some more. Right? Their little toes are so cute, and their cheeks. And so it's easy to love on our little kids. Then hormones start to happen and might feel a little more awkward, especially, mom to son or dad to daughter. touch is still so very important. I would almost make the argument that it's more important. Don't pull your touch away from them. Okay? It doesn't, if you don't feel comfortable hugging, it could be,
The typical Christian side hug. That was a little too close. Okay.
Yeah, that was a little too close.
So exactly what she said. Picture it this way. I like to build a lot of things with wood. Picture your children as a piece of wood. Okay? A nice cut piece of wood. It's beautiful. It could be cherry or something. Mahogany. It's just this beautiful piece. If you compare, we've got 7 kids. If we had 7 pieces of wood lined up, same cut size and everything, every one would look different. The grain in each one would be completely, uniquely different. And that's the way it is with our kids and yours. Okay? So picture that. Now place however many kids you have. Imagine that many pieces of wood and you put them outside for a year. In the 4 seasonal elements that we call Kansas and Missouri, which is crazy. Because it's about to snow again in April on Sunday. Okay? And so crazy weather. So you put those 7 pieces of wood for us or however many you have. Imagine those pieces of wood going out in the weather and they're one whole year out there. I would guarantee you, having worked with wood a lot, they would look almost unrecognizable from what they originally were when you placed them out. The weather would seek to destroy those pieces of wood and change their whole appearance, their coloring, and everything. Now imagine, take those same amount of pieces of wood. They're just nice cut. You're about to put them out. Before you do that, you put some shellac or lacquer on top, a couple coats of that to protect and preserve. You put them out for the same amount of time a year. I would almost guarantee that within a year's time, they're going to look pretty close to when you first set them out. Your parenting, with your life-giving words and your loving, appropriate touch and your mentorship coming alongside, is that protection. It's that preservation of your children as you get ready to prepare to launch them as arrows. Okay? So think of it in that way. The world, just like the weather, wants to destroy them. When they leave your home and you release those arrows at age 18, there are world factors and people and forces out there that would just love to eat them up, destroy their faith, ruin relationships. A preservation factor and a protection factor is your love, your plan, your guidance. So one thing we want to specifically talk about, since this talk is named Rites of Passage, is we want to talk about what that is. So in many cultures of the world today, but also in past cultures, there's been something called a rite of passage. And oftentimes it was mostly for young men as a way to finally say the community or the tribe or the village or whatever, and basically confer on them the mantle of you're a man now, okay? Based on whatever initiation he went through or whatever. We've kind of taken that idea and have made it applicable to our young men and our young women, okay? Because they're both, we want to release both of them well. We want to prepare both of them well. So think of a rite of passage as that, as kind of like a step up, a calling up to a new level of responsibility and maturity. So when we talk about rites of passages, and Johanna's going to begin talking about a few of those that we've done and are doing, that's what we're talking about. It's an intentional plan where we're pouring these gifts that we talked about into our kids through certain experiences. Okay?
Okay, so I feel like I should give a little caveat. Hello? Okay. Caveat here. We do certain things at certain ages. I recognize that everyone in here is not going to be able to do what we do. We wouldn't expect you to. Your families are different. Your financial situations are different. We purposely save intentionally to do these things with our kids. So that's just something that we have worked out within the inner workings of the Gelatt family. I don't want you to walk away from here. Neither one of us wants you to walk away and go, oh, well, I can't do that. Okay? We're going to touch on this at the end, but before I even start speaking about it, I want you to know that there are many ways you can make this happen. We're just going to share how we do it, okay? So, age 12, not 13, age 12, we begin to call our young men. Our daughter, her trip is this fall. She turns 12. So we've taken both of our boys on this trip. we take them to Chicago. And here's the kicker. We do it at 12 because typically it's 13, right? That's when you become a teenager. That's when the big things happen. We do it at 12 because we have always liked to call our children up to things before they should be expected to. And so we chose the age of 12. So 12 is the magic number in the Gelatt household, and we take them to Chicago. But here's the deal. We don't plan the trip. So we take the Amtrak. We don't take the plane because it's too expensive, and we want to have time to sit on the train to talk. And so they make the reservations. We help them navigate the internet. They figure out how to do that. They figure out if we have to have a connection and how to make that all happen. They help with the hotel reservations, so they do all the legwork beforehand. They get on the internet, look up some things that they think would be interesting. We try to work those in. Micah has made, this is nothing special. I mean, it's not even cut straight.
That's because I did it.
Really bugs me. Okay. Just being real. Okay, so this was Ethan's book. And as I was flipping through this, cracks me up. So Josiah's our oldest, and Ethan is our next. And Josiah, in his book, he had things written, and everything was marked off. He really wanted to be sure that he got everything marked off. It was really important to him to mark everything off. Ethan's, as I was flipping through, I was like, dude, did you even look at the book? There's a couple boxes filled in. There's nothing written. Josiah's in the back, favorite memories and, things, places visited. Yeah, these are blank. It just makes me laugh how they're so different. Okay, so in Ethan's book, can I read a little snippet of what you wrote?
Yes.
Micah wrote, "This is not to be considered a vacation. Though we will have a lot of fun, this is a trip with a special purpose, to call you up on the first step towards manhood. Your mother and I are proud of the young man you are becoming, and this trip will help you greatly along that journey. God has given us much knowledge and some wisdom. We only ask that you listen carefully to us on this adventure and allow your mind to meditate on the words we share and the things that we do." And then it goes on. We really talked about this before our trip with Josiah, whether Micah should take them or take him. There's only one of him. Should take him. And we decided that we didn't want to set it up that way. We really felt like we both have things we want to pour into them at different stages. I have an opinion, a mindset, a viewpoint that the boys need to hear. Micah, same, has one that the girls need to hear. And we really felt that it was important that it be both of us pouring into them. Now, the more intimate conversations Micah has with Josiah, that would completely embarrass him, right? Although he is pretty frank with me. There's certain things that I'm just like, you should probably just talk to your dad. Okay, so anyway, in this book, what we did is, so they make all the trips, they make all the preparations for this trip. And then we land in Chicago at Union Station, and they have to figure out how to get us to the hotel. So we give them a map. We actually give them our phone.
It's a map.
Yeah. And they have to figure out how to get us to the hotel. Then we're there for what, 2 days?
No,
3
3.
days?
3 days. Yeah.
2.5 days?
Something like that.
They have to figure out how to fit all the stuff in this booklet into those 2 days. So Chicago's a busy city. You gotta get at the map, you gotta plan, you gotta think through. They have to figure out how to get on the subway, they have to figure out how to get the subway ticket, they have to figure out where we get on the subway to make sure we're going in the right direction on the subway, on the L train, because all of that's very confusing. We don't have those in Kansas City. They've never seen anything like that before. So that's part of what I was talking about earlier. What are those things you want them to know before they leave your house? We want them to know how to navigate those things. We want them to know how to make reservations. We want them to know what to do in a big city. We want them to know what it feels like to have all those people and the rushing and the craziness and the subway's coming, and are we going to get on the right way? And what if we go the wrong way? Then what are we going to do? So all of those things.
Can I stop for a minute? But in preparation of that, first we took, not Josiah, because I don't think it was installed yet, but with Ethan, we took him down to the streetcar in Kansas City. right? It goes this way, it goes this way, it goes back and forth. It's an easy start, but it's something. It's preparing for the bigger thing.
So then Micah came up with, he's pretty fantastic. I'm so happy to have him. He's seriously, he's in the operation. So he came up with a bunch of places in Chicago. So I'm just going to read you a couple so that you have, not places, things he had to do, things he had to accomplish. And so, for instance, okay, Billy Goat Tavern. So they have to figure out where Billy Goat Tavern is. And it's a restaurant down underneath this
Everybody
place.
ever been there?
Anybody ever
Chicago?
been there? Okay, you guys need to go. Seriously.
You been to the Billy Goat? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So, anyway, when we get there, when we get to all these places, another place, I can't find it on here, Micah, but the big bean, big reflecting bean, right? I totally didn't understand what that was the first time I was there. I was like, what the heck is there a huge coffee bean in the middle of your city? Like, this is just weird. Anyway, so they had to find that, and Mike, I can't find it, but where's that verse? I wanted to read that one. I'm not sure. They had to give money to a homeless person. The cloud gate. Okay, so it's not a bean.
Well, that's what everybody calls it.
Okay, so one of them was to take a picture of us at the cloud gate. So it's this huge, ginormous bean if you haven't been there, and it reflects the city, and you can stand in front of it, and then it looks like you're standing in the middle of the city.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Anyway, it is pretty cool. But the verse was Psalm 16:7. Do not consider how handsome or tall he is. I have not chosen him. I do not look at the things people look at. Man looks at how someone appears on the outside, but I look on what is in the heart. And so then we stop and we pause and we talk about what does it mean to be a reflection. Okay? And so the trip had a purpose, like a many-fold purpose of us pouring into him. Mike says what we expect of you on this adventure and what you can expect of us on this adventure. So many conversations happen on this beautiful trip of, dude, you're like young adulting. You're there. Because of that, we're going to give you so much more responsibility. But on the flip side, we're going to expect more from you. And you know what? We reference that trip all the time, especially when Ethan's not quite like where we want him to be responsibility-wise. Micah will. I don't generally, but Micah will. He'll call him up as a man. Man, you've taken your Chicago trip. What are you doing? Like I thought we were there. And so it's a great reference to be able to go back to. Then 14, we take him on a missions trip. So Ethan is not 14 yet, he's 13. Josiah has gone on his missions trip. He and his dad, we work with refugees primarily from Burma. And so Micah was on his way to Burma, Myanmar, across the world, and he took Josiah with him. So they spent 2-3 weeks in Burma together. Do you want to say any more about that?
Well, and I created a book for that as well, but we were busy doing a lot of ministry, but I knew I would have like a day and a half on a plane to talk on the way there and back, and so we talked through things. We talked through having a heart for missions, not doing that necessarily full-time, but just having a mindset that's missional, compassionate for the world, showing love even when you're tired, because you do have jet lag when you go over to Asia, and especially on the way back. And so just talk about those things. How do we serve others when we're tired? And so we talked about that a lot. And then we both got some kind of gastrointestinal nightmare from eating mangoes in a village, so we talked about all kinds of interesting things on the way back. Okay? How to say please and thank you a lot when you have to get out of the aisle and use the plane bathroom 300 times. But but it's a memory. We're making memories, but I was being intentional as I could to talk through, to kind of raise the stakes a little bit more. And say that, and also, there's a big world out there, bro. There's a big world, and I want them to see that. So when we take them on a mission trip, wherever that is, in stateside or in another part of the world, I want them to go. There's a big world. You're small, but you make a big impact. But I want you to see the diversity that's out there. And then at 16, and we're planning actually Josiah's next trip. He's our oldest. So at 12, we do the Chicago trip, just calling them up to manhood. A lot of things they're not used to. 14, it's a missions trip, where they're being on mission and learning to serve. At 16, Josiah is going to take that in June. We've been saving pennies for quite a while, and we're going to take him to New York City. So the biggest city in the United States, and it's like the Chicago trip on steroids. Okay? And so we're going to expect a whole lot more of him. Full navigation is going to come from him. We would help some in Chicago. It's going to come from him for this trip. We will not move our feet until he tells us to move. Okay? We're not going to make a decision on this trip. We're really going to call him up and expect great things. We're going to be there when he fails. We're going to offer a lot of grace, but that's kind of what we're doing. And then at age 18, what we have in mind is and we haven't figured out the location yet, but we're going to take a trip, the two of us with each of the kids, to somewhere in the United States, and then talk through a lot of these rites of passages that we've asked them to jump through. We're going to talk through some of the three gifts that we talked about: the life lessons, the character qualities, the specific experiences, and then we'll probably spend 2 or 3 days there in that location, just having those talks, because this will be a child that's then kind of on the cusp of leaving in college or tech school or vocation, whatever, bound, and we want to have a good send-off. But then what we're going to do is, Johanna and I plan to fly home. Before we fly home, we're going to give them everything they need to get a plane ticket, to get home, when they need to be home, and then there's something special waiting for them at home. So we're going to leave without them. Symbolically is the plan there. And so then they're going to arrive. And that's going to, even at 18, I'm like, let him fly by himself? He used to mess in his diapers, you know. And so it's kind of a symbolic, we're letting you go. Okay? Because I don't know if you knew this, but your children don't belong to you. Your cell phone belongs to you. Sometimes you belong to your cell phone, okay? But your cell phone is a possession. Your children are a temporary stewardship assignment given to you for a time from the King, and they're sons and daughters of the King. And we cherish them and take care of them for a time, but then we release them. So then Josiah and then the others will follow, and when it's their time, and they'll fly home. And then waiting for them at home will be friends, very close friends, family, and a celebration, where we then have a meal, and we have intentional people, maybe coaches, maybe key men or women that have poured into their life, family, grandma, etc., that will take turns saying life-giving words of blessing as they get ready to go to college or whatever is next on the docket. As a final way to say, hey, we've intentionally planned this out to pour into you, and this is it. It doesn't mean we're not going to still be there for you, but this is a big send-off. Does that make sense? And so that's the rites of passages we've put together. And like Johanna said earlier, we don't do this perfectly. We have a plan. And by God's grace, we think it's a good one. And yet, there's times of inconsistency when we're raising kids. But I guess if I could say this, and I think I said it earlier, this plan, or whatever you're going to do that's similar to this, is ultimately more effective and more important than whatever curriculum you're going to put into your house, or whatever extracurricular you're going to allow your kid to do. Violin lessons, or piano, or whatever. All those things can be great things and good experiences, but I really feel there has to be a more intentional and bigger plan. Whatever you put together doesn't have to look like this. And Johanna's going to talk a little bit about that, but have something. Have something with an end in mind where you're going to shoot arrows.
Okay, so I know some of you are sitting there going, whoa, but how do we do that? Or some of you are sitting there going, oh, but my kids are already, past that. So, what do I do now? Okay, so number one, I want you to give yourself some grace. Number one, I want you to think outside of the box. Okay, not everybody is wired the way we are. You're not going to maybe do this. But I do think that it's important to say that this begins when they're young. I touched on that earlier, but I want you to know that you need to be asking your kids to do things sooner than kids are expected to do them. So I teach my 3-year-old how to make her own breakfast. And I'm not just talking pour the cereal into the bowl, okay? I teach them how to, if you're making their beds for them, if you're doing their laundry for them, if you're doing all of these things for them, I really encourage you to just stop and teach them how to do it. And then expect them to do it at a young age. My 5-year-old knows how to do laundry. And I'm good with that. Now, she can't get it out of the laundry because we have a stinking huge bowl, but she can put it in there and she can put the soap and she can get on the stool and she can push the buttons so she can get it started. And then I can put it in the basket and she can throw it into the dryer. Okay? Then I just have to look the other way and I don't care what it looks like after it's folded. Okay? So there's some stuff you have to release, but expect your kids to do more than the average kid that age. Call them up. There's no difference. Call up your 2-year-old. Okay? Don't talk to them like a baby. We've never done baby talk in our house. We have always talked to our children like they're adults. We use big sentences, we use big words, we don't dumb things down. We just talk to them like they're big people. And I feel that this doesn't just start at 12. That's kind of where we started talking about our rites of passage. It really starts way back here. Calling them up, encouraging them to grow, encouraging them to become something bigger than they think they can be.
Yes. So, okay. So if you're wondering where to even begin, and some of you might be going home and going, okay, I'm just going to start searching and putting together a plan. It sounds exciting. Some of you are like, I've got little kids, or I've got a 12, 13, 14-year-old. I'm too late. Not at all. Just start somewhere. Start small. One of my favorite quotes is from the movie The Patriot. Aim small, miss small. You know what that means? Don't aim for a big target because you're likely to miss it. Aim for something small that's on the big target. And you're going to hit what's next to that small thing. You're going to get close. If you don't hit that small thing, you're just going to be a small distance away. You're at least going to come close. So don't just that, boom. No. Aim for something specific. Start small. Okay? So maybe that is just going to downtown Kansas City. And we see a lot of these helicopter parents, and they're going to the park and they're just swooping in. They don't want Johnny to even get a grass stain, for heaven's sake. Let him eat mud. It's okay. It's good for the immunity. Okay, I didn't just say that.
But if you don't feel good about that, all 7 of our kids are here this weekend, and they weren't supposed to be. And so I'm not an overly prepared mom, so if you don't feel good about that, just come find me and look at my children, and then you'll feel better about yourself.
Right. That's it.
Because they pack their own bags.
That's it.
I'm not sure a hairbrush entered into the bag, so.
But just start somewhere. Start by taking them downtown Kansas City and allowing them to do the things that, like Johanna said, that kids typical that age don't do. Don't give your keys to a 3-year-old. That's not what we're saying and say go drive. We're just saying call them up a bit at a time. Because again, if we want to have kids that are not just because traditional parenting is provide for them, feed them once in a while, and just make sure they're safe and everything and kind of protect them, and then just, you're ready for college, we educated you, okay? But intentional parenting, I think, is bigger than that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't feed them and educate them and those kind of things. It has a bigger vision. It has a vision to release kids that are, if you think about that theme of this conference, if we release arrows, we expect it to hit a target. If arrows in the hands of a warrior is what our kids are, then we're probably aiming at a target at some point. We're on mission. We have a vision for where we want to send these arrows. And if you don't shape your arrow, because they used to make their arrows back then, not by factory, but by hand. If you don't shape that correctly, you're not going to hit anything. So you have to fashion that arrow with a particular plan and a vision of what you want it to look like, knowing where you want to shoot that to make a difference in a world that's just kind of ugly and dark and broken. So that you're sending salt and light that's now been prepared to be salt and light into this world to make a difference. Did we get the... Okay, good deal. So that's it. I would say this. We're here for the rest of this evening, which isn't much longer. We're here all day tomorrow. If you have specific questions about this, just let us know. Okay? We appreciate you. Appreciate your time.